going to do in this segment is go over how to build a handle out of foam. We've got our blank. This here's actually a camo blank. I don't know if you can tell or not on the camera, but it's pretty neat. We've got our reel seat, our rear grip, foregrip, and then I'm going to go over how to build a gimbal, and then also how to build it with a butt cap. First thing we're going to do, before we even get our foam, we're going to make sure that we've sized up our blank correctly to the foam. So what we do is we take a caliper and we mic our blank. Say we want a 10-inch rear grip. Take a ruler, measure 10 inches up from the butt of the rod, mic it with your caliper, pull it off. Okay, I know right here we're about 3/4 of an inch, so I want a grip that's 3/4 of an inch in diameter on the inside. If you're getting one of our rod building kits, it's all taken care of for you. You don't have to mic anything. Just go in there, pick out which blank and length you want, and we'll send you the blank with the grips, components, the guides, all assembled for you. The same thing with the reel seat. Reel seat, I size more according to the size reel that myself or a customer is going to be putting on the rod. Ultimately, I mean, you definitely want to make sure that the inside diameter of the reel seat is large enough to fit down your blank. That's obviously got to happen. But as far as how much excess you have in regards to the difference between the blank and the reel seat, it's not that big of a deal. What we'll do is we'll take masking tape and build up some bushings and arbors to snug it up. It's more important to make sure you have a reel seat that'll A, fit the reel that you're going to use, and then B, that your hand is comfortable with. Especially a lot of times on inshore rods, spinning rods in particular, a lot of manufacturers will use reel seats that are too small, at least for comfort, because it fits the blank rather than fit your hand, and they have to use, or they can get away with less amount of material as far as, you know, arbors and whatnot. So it's a quicker build for them and it's cheaper. But ultimately, when you're fishing all day, you want maximum comfort. So what I'll do, especially on my inshore rods, I'm going to hold in my hand, 10 hours a day when I'm seriously fishing. I'll definitely use a larger reel seat that fits my hand as opposed to fitting the blank. And again, it's got to be large enough, but I don't worry too much about it fitting the blank. Now, if I'm building a casting rod and I want to use a trigger reel seat, number one, I'll always use an exposed reel seat. You can see here there's a slot in this reel seat, and that allows your blank to come through, which we're going to go over here when I build a casting handle, but I just want to touch on that. And it allows you to put your hand directly on the blank. And what I was getting to with the trigger reel seat was it's got to fit your blank exactly, because you have no arbors, no bushings, and it's just going to slide down, and where it's tight is where it's going to be epoxied. So you need to make sure you have the right size exposed reel seat when you're making a casting handle. Let's go ahead and put our gimbal on. I like to build it from the absolute butt end up. Now if you take a look, this gimbal is much larger than the diameter of our blank. So once again, just like before, we're going to have to build the bushing. Now what I'm going to do is take again my China marker and mark where my gimbal stops. That mark's going to let me know A, where to stop putting my epoxy, and for right now it's going to tell me where I need to stop when I'm building my bushings. Now here I'm just going to use 1/2-inch masking tape, and I'm going to build 2 rings. I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch on both sides. I'm going to put one ring here and another ring right here, about 1/4 inch from that actual end of the rod, and then 1/4 inch from where the gimbal is actually going to stop. That way we've got room for epoxy to form a direct bond between the gimbal and our blank. If you were to wrap this whole area in tape, you would eliminate the ability, the epoxy's ability to form a strong bond between the blank and the gimbal. Ultimately, the tape is here just to keep the gimbal tight and straight until that epoxy has a chance to cure. The tape really has no structural purpose other than keeping the gimbal straight before that epoxy cures. And again, we want it nice and snug, but not too tight. A little too tight. Rather be a little loose than a little tight because you want to get epoxy in there. That's what's going to keep that gimbal from spinning or coming off while you're fighting a big fish. It's about perfect. I'm going to build a second ring. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you build the ring that's towards the tip first. If you were to build this ring and then this ring, you wouldn't know for sure that this innermost ring is the correct size. So by building the ring towards the tip first and checking that, you can check the rings independently. Covered up a little bit of my gap there, and I want to make sure I keep that so I can get epoxy in between our bushings. There we go. Perfect. We know that our grip is ready to go. And before I start mixing epoxy, I'm going to find out exactly where my grip stops. And just kind of let it slide down, nice and easy. And this is Hypalon, so it's a little softer foam. It'll expand a little easier than EVA. This is actually EVA, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. That's the EVA being a little tougher. But we'll just kind of throw this down here. It stops right there. And we know this grip, the next size up will be too big. It's going to fall off the end. Obviously, we don't want that to happen, so this is our best option right here. The foam will expand and slide down. What we need to do to get it there is put some epoxy underneath the grip where it's still loose, so it creates like a lubricant and it can slide down over the blank. So what we're going to do is mark the top of our grip where it stops, not the bottom. It's too tight down here already. If we push from here, it's just going to push that epoxy out of the way as it goes down. If we mark it up here and put epoxy in here, we know it can make it this far on its own. So it's going to get here with that epoxy in it and get epoxy up inside the grip. That way it'll slide down. We'll know that there's a strong bond between the blank and the grip. All right, we've got that mark. We're ready to mix our rod bond now. There's a couple other epoxies out there that you can use to build handles with and to glue your handles. I prefer rod bond. It's been around for forever, and I'm yet to have a handle fail. When you mix epoxy, you want to make sure you mix enough. And the more you mix, you give yourself a little more room for error. These epoxies are a 1-to-1 ratio, a 2-part mix. You don't have to be exact about it, but you want it to be pretty close. And if you were to mix too small amounts, obviously you have less volume of each part, so any variance you have in either one, you have a better chance of messing up the ratio.